America entered the 20th century a nation still emerging, finding our way in the world. And our journey of discovery and self-realization is not over by any means. But now, as we enter the 21st century, the United States has become unquestionably the most powerful nation on earth. And more than that, a standard bearer of hope and democracy for people everywhere. Liberty enlightening the world. That's the real name of that famous statue in the harbor. Built in the 19th century, a gift of the people of France, that statue has seen the unfolding of an amazing story in the century that made America great. In the past 100 years, America has weathered 2 world wars, a depression, gave man wings and flew him to the moon, won the so-called Cold War against communism. It hasn't been easy. It has taken courage and dedication, imagination, and hard work. We who enjoy the fruits of their efforts owe much to those people who time and again in this century have faced the adversities, taken up the challenges, responded to the opportunities. Today, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the Americans who were here at the century's dawn, and the millions who have joined them here from all over the world, can celebrate and take inspiration from the dreamers and the doers whose story we now tell. I'm Charles Osgood, and this is the century that made America great. It always has been hard. It always will be. But still they come, putting all the past behind them and all their faith in what lies ahead. Faith in the future is what brings them, just as faith in the future brought countless others a century ago to this place, to Ellis Island in New York Harbor, in sight of the Statue of Liberty. They had crossed an ocean by then, but the more fateful crossing would be of this vast room. This is where the sea change would happen. 9 million people came through Ellis Island in the first decade of this century. They entered its great hall, Italian or German or Hungarian or Swede. They left it, those who were not sent back, American.
These were my mother's shoes that she wore when we got off the boat and stepped into Ellis Island. They had been stitched and mended many, many times. The shoelaces were even threadbare, as they still are. They had been half-soled, and even the half-soles were worn through.
The trip took 14 days, but on a boat I could hardly eat anything. I would throw up continuously. And I would be laying on the top deck, any place I could lay down, because totally I was in misery. It was real foggy that morning. We started to see the forms, and as we get closer and closer, we still and everybody started screaming, "Libertà, libertà," in Italian, say. Everything like that was very joyful.
The only thing that kept me going, I guess all of the other immigrants too, is that right across the water, you can see the land of opportunity. And then you look as you enter the harbor and you see the Statue of Liberty. Now, everybody knows what the Statue of Liberty is, even whether they know a bit of English or not. There it was, and you knew you were in America.
My father was the first one who told me about the Statue of Liberty and what it meant to him, and about the dreams he had when he was living in Vienna, and those dreams were cut short. And he said to me, "Remember one thing, you may not have had to get here, but this is the place to be."
You know, it's very difficult to be an American. Did you realize that? No. We're actually, in a sense, we're committed to loneliness. When you have these great ideals of independence and of freedom, many of the old bulwarks that the oldest civilizations have are thrown away. And it's a great adventure, so to speak.
I loathe people who cannot reconcile themselves with this country because it isn't perfect. Who the hell are they to expect America to be perfect? America was built by the scum of the earth there, and we created a tremendous country here. How can you expect this thing to be perfect? You got to get down on your knees and praise the Lord that the scum accomplished so much.
There seemed good reason for their faith in the future. By 1900, the devastation of the Civil War was distant enough so that its wounds were nearly healed. And there was great energy in the air, and an abiding belief that every tomorrow would be better than the day that had gone before. America's streets were not actually paved with gold, of course, but the bright promise to which they all led was as good as gold. We did not ourselves actually have to wave the flag. The brisk breeze of our optimism did that for us. There were somber notes, of course. In 1901, in Buffalo, New York, President William McKinley was assassinated. It would be his young vice president who would lead America into the 20th century. His young vice president was Theodore Roosevelt. Americanism is a matter of the spirit and of the soul, Teddy Roosevelt said. If he is loyal to this republic, any man, no matter where he was born, is just as good an American as anyone else. Teddy Roosevelt himself seemed a living summary of what an American should be. A straight-shooting outdoorsman, explorer, enemy of unbridled big business and of big government. He said so himself in 1908.
The history of liberty was the history of the limitation of governmental power. It is true of the history of medieval Europe. It is not true of the history of 20th century America.
Of course we had faith in the future, with Teddy Roosevelt pointing the way. What couldn't we do if we could dig the Big Ditch, the Panama Canal, to link the Atlantic and the Pacific? Teddy said, I took the isthmus, started the canal, and then left Congress to debate the canal as long as they wish. Where others had failed, stopped by mountains and vanquished by mosquitoes, we succeeded. You only needed to look at the man to know where America was headed. Forward, unstoppably forward. Millions had come to this country to put the conflicts of Europe behind them. Woodrow Wilson knew that, but there were continuous violations of America's neutrality. And when the Germans sank the British ocean liner Lusitania in 1915, killing many American passengers among others, there seemed no longer to be any choice. We would enter the Great War. Not in search of conquest, Wilson said, but to ensure universal right. Another who reminded this country of what was right was labor leader Samuel Gompers.
Fellow Americans, our republic is at war against the imperial German and Austrian governments. That fact all must now realize. War means victory for our cause or danger to the very existence of our nation.
Later, in 1928, another president, Herbert Hoover, remembered what it was like over there.
I was one of the few civilians who saw something of the Battle of the Somme. In the distant view were the unending trenches filled with 1.5 million of men. Here and there, like ants, they advanced under the thunder and the belching of volcanoes from 10,000 guns. Their lives were thrown away until 500,000 of them had died. Passing close by were the unending lines of men plodding along the right-hand side of the road to the front, not with drums and bands, but with saddened resignation. And down the left side of the road came the unending lines of wounded men, staggering amongst stretchers and ambulances. Do you think one can forget that?
It was the unforgettable horror that spurred Wilson to try to end such conflicts forever. He sailed for Europe to sign a peace treaty and was welcomed as a hero in France. But he wanted more than just another treaty of peace. What he wanted was to create a League of Nations to keep wars from happening. But Congress wanted no part of Wilson's dream. And besides, there never would be another world war. But back home, there was another victory still to be earned. At the turn of the century that made America great, most men, and many women too, believed that women had their place and that the fair sex should be sheltered from the rigors of life. Among the rigors from which women had to be sheltered was voting. During the First World War, however, America's women stepped out of their place. 1 in 5 went to work in munitions factories and oil refineries and in transportation. Oh, and yes, they did the nursing and the knitting and the gardening too. Having done all that, they demanded the right to vote, right out in front of the White House. On August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified. Women had won the right to vote. And America had won something too, the full participation of half its people. Hard to understand how we could have done without it for so long. But now, the sky was the limit. Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. The sky had also been the limit here in 1903, when two American brothers made real the dream of man since the beginning of time. They flew. Wilbur and Orville Wright built their airplane in their bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio. A coin toss gave Orville the privilege of trying out their contraption first. It worked. The longest flight that day was not as long as the wingspan of a modern 747 jet, but it was a flight, as one amazed witness recalled in 1952.
Well, Captain Tate, tell me, did you think that machine was going to work?
No, sir, I did not. Neither did anyone else on this coast, regardless of whether he claims to or not. We thought that the Wrights was a bunch of crackpots.
Only 2 newspapers noted their achievement the next day. But soon enough, everyone was captivated, though not everyone was out dancing the new airplane waltz. Teddy Roosevelt, just out of office, was the first president to fly. He brought his usual enthusiasm to the adventure. He had once said, "I always believe in going hard at everything." And so no one was surprised that he would risk his life in one of those newfangled, flimsy flying machines. But came the war, and the infant airplane grew up fast. It still was gangly and gawky and temperamental, but it was a potent weapon now, not a novelty. And a new hero emerged, the ace. These were men who used to say, any landing you walk away from is a good landing. Later on in the Roaring '20s, it began to be possible for ordinary people to fly, too, as paying passengers on the new airlines. The message was that travel by air was completely safe. So safe, in fact, that if you wanted, you could be just as silly in the air as you were on the ground. And then there were the barnstormers, World War I veterans mostly, who used veteran aircraft to astonish audiences all through the countryside, and to offer the braver among them a joyride for $5 or so, usually inside the airplane. It was all very jazz-age, don't you know, and did not seem any crazier somehow than the rest of what was going on in that exuberantly crazy time. But there were serious exploits, too, as when Charles Lindbergh soloed the Atlantic in 1927. He was 25 years old, the very picture of America. Young, brave, undaunted, lucky. They called him that. Lucky Lindy, the Lone Eagle. He took 3 ham sandwiches with him aboard his Ryan monoplane, which was little more than a flying gas tank. It didn't even have a windshield to look out of. No matter. Lucky Lindy knew where he was going. 33 and a half hours after takeoff, he landed in Paris.
From coast to coast we often boast and sing a toast to one who's made a name for being game. He was born with wings as bright as any bird that flies. A lucky star guides him afar. Lucky Lindy up in the sky, fair or windy, he's flying high. Fearless, knows every cloud. The kind of the sun makes a mother feel proud.
Paris went wild. Lucky Lindy was living proof, handsome proof to boot, tall and slender and modest, living proof that Americans could do the impossible.
And he's a hero of the day.
American women could also do the impossible. Amelia Earhart soloed the Atlantic 5 years to the day after Lindy's flight, inspiring a generation of young women to reach for new heights.
Among all the marvels of modern invention, That with which I am most concerned is, of course, air transportation. In the brief span of 30-odd years, the world has seen an inventor's dream, first materialized by the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk, become an everyday actuality. No other phase of modern progress contrives to maintain such a brimming measure of romance and beauty coupled with utility as does aviation.
By the late 1930s, Pan American clippers were flying Americans to Europe and Asia and South America, flying them, moreover, in the high-altitude lap of luxury. The clippers were ocean liners, riding the currents above the clouds. In 1939, America's airlines carried nearly 2 million passengers hither and thither above the clouds with a perfect safety record. Air travel really was becoming routine and comfortable. Consider, in the 1930s, a passenger could have full sleeper accommodations. More than any other airplane, it was this one, the Douglas DC-3, that brought air travel to the world. The next plane we all knew about was the legendary B-17 bomber, the Flying Fortress, lovingly decorated by crews who did much of the most dangerous work of World War II. Far too many of them never came back from their assaults on Hitler's Europe. A B-17 crewman had only a 1 in 3 chance of surviving his tour of duty. CBS correspondent Edward R. Murrow went along on one B-17 flight to tell Americans back home what it was like.
The cloud was beginning to thin out, and the flak began to liven up ahead of it. By this time, we were about 30 miles from our target area in Berlin. That 30 miles was the longest flight I have ever made. We were approaching the enemy coast. Jock whipped the dog back into a climbing turn, and then I was on my knees, flat on the deck. I picked myself up and looked out again. Sticks of incendiaries from the preceding waves made the place look like a badly laid-out city with the streetlights on. The small incendiaries were going down like a fistful of white rice thrown on a piece of black velvet. The cookies, the 4,000-pound high explosives, were bursting below like great sunflowers gone mad. And then as we started down again, still held in the lights, I remembered that the dog still had one of those cookies in his belly, and I was very frightened.
After the war, jet engines were in widespread use. By the 1950s, thoroughly tested and reliable jet aircraft began appearing on the world's air routes. It was America's Boeing 707 that truly introduced the jet age at the end of the 50s. Today, the newest version of the 747 can fly more than 8,000 miles nonstop. Aviation has become a major engine of the American economy. 140,000 people are at work in Boeing's giant plant in Washington State. Back in 1916, Boeing had 21 employees, carpenters, many of them, and seamstresses to sew the cloth skins of the biplanes the carpenters were hammering together. Our can-do attitude in aviation has taken us a long, long way. That same can-do attitude shocked a smug Adolf Hitler back in 1936. No question his master race would win all the medals of the Berlin Olympics. Well, they didn't. Because a young American from Alabama said, "Can do."
Well, Jesse Owens, it's been almost 20 years now since you won the Olympic Games almost single-handed. What's your warmest memory of that August of 1936?
After 2 days of competition, and we had boiled the field down to 6 men, these 6 men represented the world's fastest human being. And out of it was to become one winner. And it was my good fortune, through the help of God, through the help of a number of people that were on my side, and coupled with the ability that I did have, I was able to emerge victorious.
Jesse Owens won 4 gold medals for the United States. Adolf Hitler, humiliated, left his own stadium rather than offer congratulations to a black man. The Arizona Memorial at Pearl Harbor. On December 7th, 1941, America's role in the world changed forever. But before that date, America wanted to stay out of the war in Europe.
Another war, not for me. This time America should keep out, and I know I will.
I haven't the slightest idea of European affairs.
If war breaks out in Europe, I think that this country should heed the advice of its first president and avoid all foreign entanglements.
I have said not once but many times that I have seen war and that I hate war. I say that again and again. I hope the United States will keep out of this war. I believe that it will.
In 1941, of course, I had one of my greatest years, and of course I just hit 400. And I have to be honest with you and tell you that that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to go to the Marines or the Navy or the Army. I wanted to play baseball.
Even in the fall of that year, Oahu was a peaceful and sleepy American island. Sailors were on the lookout here, of course, but not on the lookout for trouble. The attack was planned by Japan's brilliant Admiral Yamamoto. A brilliant American tactician of a later war gives us a surprising insight.
Yamamoto never thought Japan was going to win the war. You know, he was given a job to do by his country, and when given this job, he tried his best to come up with a strategy that would allow him to accomplish the mission. But even after he had gone through his complete analysis, Yamamoto never said, if I strike Pearl Harbor, Japan will win the war. What he said is, if I strike Pearl Harbor, we will probably delay our defeat.
My ship was going to play the Star-Spangled Banner. We had the band up on the deck. The bandmaster apparently did not realize the attack was on. And at 8 o'clock sharp, he started playing the Star-Spangled Banner. At which point, one of the planes flew over and dropped a torpedo. The bandmaster stopped in mid-beat and waited till the plane went by, and then he came on the downbeat, and they finished playing the Star-Spangled Banner, and then the band ran for their battle stations.
And then at about 15 minutes after 8, there was this bomb coming down, and we all looked up and we saw it, and the thing looked like a Volkswagen coming down. It looked that big, and we thought it was going to hit us. And we all hit the deck, and of course it hit the Arizona.
It started shuddering, shaking, and we looked out, and there was nothing but a white furnace in front of us. And those people come walking out of that furnace with all their clothes burned off and charted black. I touched one man that I knew. His skin come off my hand.
Another World War II Navy veteran, President George Bush, visited the Arizona Memorial in 1991.
Look at the water here. Clear and quiet. It wrapped its arms around the finest sons any nation could ever have. And it carried them to a better world. May God bless them. And may God bless America, the most wondrous land on earth.
Hitler never understood this country, nor did the Japanese. They thought we were soft and pleasure-loving. We didn't have the discipline. Stick through a tough, long war and take a lot of casualties. I don't know how they think this country was explored and developed. It wasn't done by wimps. But they didn't know that.
And this, in vivid color, was Operation Overlord, the almost unimaginable landing of 150,000 men on the beaches of France on D-Day, June 6, 1944. 4 years almost to the day after Germany forced British troops back into the English Channel at Dunkirk. The Allies would begin the war's final thrust. Planning had begun nearly a year before. Now, the American troops had their last chance to hide their fears with a bit of humor before facing withering fire on the German-held beaches of Normandy. From his command post at Suddick House in England, General Dwight David Eisenhower had complete responsibility for the mammoth assault Winston Churchill called the most difficult and complicated operation that has ever taken place. It was all on Ike's shoulders. What were his feelings on D-Day, Walter Cronkite asked 20 years later.
One of the most famous pictures of D-Day was of you talking to the paratroopers in their camouflage. And one of the versions of that visit, I think, said that as you turned away, this reporter saw a tear in your eye.
I would think if a man didn't show a bit of emotion, it would show that he probably was a little bit inhuman. And goodness knows, those fellows meant a lot to me. I went over to a field from which the airborne, the American airborne, started out. Now, I couldn't go to all these fields because there were many of them. But I did go into the 101st Division, and it was a very fine experience. They were getting ready, all camouflaged, and their faces blackened and all this. And there they saw me, and of course they'd recognize me. And they said, "Now quit worrying, General. We'll take care of this thing for you." And it was a good feeling.
The troops came in aboard their tiny landing craft and made for shore. It was the greatest battle of the 20th century. The beaches were heavily fortified and fiercely defended. Utah and Omaha for the Americans, Gold and Sword for the British, Juneau for the Canadians. Every yard taken would be at great cost.
Well, they hit the beach, as I recall, about 7:25. That's what they're supposed to. All of this sand was filled with obstacles, and there had been some attempts to cut the lanes that we wanted through them, but it wasn't very successful. They were under fire all the time, and finally some hardy soul just got up and said, "Come on, fellas, I'm sick of this, and let's try it." And we began to see these little individual acts of heroism, leadership coming to its very acme, you know, and the fellow starts off with that high ground up there, and you get 2 or 3 behind him, they get to become 20 and 30, and finally you've got some real power. I think these men came here, British and our other allies, the Americans, to storm these beaches for one purpose only, not to gain anything for ourselves, not to fulfill any ambitions that America had for conquest, but just to preserve freedom. And here again, in the 20th century, for the second time, Americans, along with the rest of the free world, but Americans had to come across the ocean to defend those same values.
As the fighting ground on, more and more of Hitler's once invincible army came under Allied control. The soldiers of the master race who could not lose were losing to ordinary GIs who did what needed to be done. They did what needed to be done halfway around the world, too, in the South Pacific, sailing and fighting island by island toward Japan. An Allied invasion of the Japanese mainland would cost over 1 million lives. But there was another way that might end the war. 2 bombs, unlike any others ever built before, atomic bombs. Drop them on 2 great cities of Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and maybe it would be all over. But there was a miswired cable in the second bomb. A Band-Aid was needed, and engineer Bernard O'Keefe came to the rescue with some old-fashioned American ingenuity.
Now, if I did what I should do, I would call the major in, who was in charge, and say, "Major, this cable's been put in backwards. You'll have to get out the assembly crew and take the whole thing apart," which I was sure would take at least 24 hours. So I got my technician, and we propped open the doors, and we got 2 50-foot extension cords, which were forbidden because there were no electrical outlets. And I unsoldered the cable connector at this end, and then I went around very carefully around these 64 very sensitive detonators with my soldering iron, which could have set them off.
and disconnected the cable on that, connector on that end, and I reversed them, and I soldered up the wires again, and I put up the connectors, and when the major came back, he said, "Are you all finished?" And I said, "Yes, sir, it's all done, ready to go."
The bombs went off, and from then on, the world would live in their shadow. September 2nd, 1945, aboard the battleship Missouri in Tokyo Harbor, Japan surrenders unconditionally to General Douglas MacArthur, representing the Allies. It has been nearly 4 years since Pearl Harbor, but the bloodshed is over.
These proceedings are closed.
As it is over in Europe, too, but Europe is in ruins. Not cities only, but lives. Millions of lives are reduced to rubble. Whole economies are reduced to rubble. There is reason to fear that the Soviet Union may seize this chance to plant the seeds of communism in the overturned earth of Western Europe. President Harry Truman looks to his staff for a solution.
The idea was to save the free world from going completely to a pot and becoming a part of the Russian system, which Eastern Europe finally did become.
And Secretary of State George C. Marshall proposes one, an audacious plan. Rebuild what is rubble, all of it, economies, cities, lives, rebuild everything. An enormously generous proposal, but its author has no illusions about it.
I don't even assume that there'll be a degree of gratitude that will be very impressive in this country. You always get in trouble when you give.
Between 1948 and 1951, the Marshall Plan provides $13 billion in aid to 16 countries, including Germany and Italy. There has never been such an effort in the history of the world. Here are pictures of places in Germany at war's end, and pictures of the same places remade by the Marshall Plan. And here is a picture of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin in 1948. Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union has ordered East Germany to close all roads from the west, cutting off West Berlin entirely. Without food, without fuel, West Berlin will be at Stalin's mercy. Another audacious American plan takes shape. Supply West Berlin by air every day for nearly 10 months. American and British C-54s take off from West Germany. Some days they land in West Berlin at the rate of one every minute. The Berlin airlift makes a mockery of Stalin's blockade, which he lifts in 1949. But he does not lift restrictions on those in East Berlin who are desperate to slip away to the west. A wall goes up to keep them trapped, and guards are ordered to shoot any who try to scale the wall. Still, the people of East Berlin yearn to be free. Some risk their lives by jumping from buildings that sit on the border. In West Berlin on June 26, 1963, President John F. Kennedy raises his voice so that those in the East can hear him too.
2,000 years ago, the proudest boast was, Civis Romanus sum. Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is, Ich bin ein Berliner. There are some who say that communism is the wave of the future. let them come to Berlin. And there are even a few who say that it's true that communism is an evil system, but it permits us to make economic progress. Lass sie nach Berlin in kommen. Let them come to Berlin.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The wall did come down in November of 1989. An entire generation that had grown up on both sides of the wall joined in celebration of its destruction. And another wall, much older, built 2,000 years ago to keep foreigners out of China. But here came a foreigner, President Richard M. Nixon of the United States. In 1972, after 2 decades of enmity between this country and the People's Republic of China, Richard Nixon arrives to make a kind of peace. It is a stunning moment. No Democrat could have done it, or he would have been called soft on communism. But who could say that of Richard Nixon? So it happened that the staunchest anti-communist of all felt himself free to go and meet Zhou Enlai and Mao Zedong and to change history.
Chairman Mao has written, "So many deeds cry out to be done, and always urgently. The world rolls on. We have great differences today. 10,000 years are too long. Seize the day. Seize the hour. This is the hour. This is the day."
You think of that trip back there, what I described as the week that changed the world, perhaps a bit exaggerated, but at least in terms of hopes, that's what it was, and I think that's what history will record.
In the Middle East, history has seen an endless succession of wars. In 1975, Egypt's President Anwar Sadat expressed doubt that there would ever be peace between Arabs and Israelis.
Can you ever imagine yourself one day sitting down like we are sitting down here and talk with Israeli leaders?
In my generation, no.
Good evening. Not since the founding of the modern state of Israel, not as far as we know, has a leader of Israel met with a leader of Egypt. But now all obstacles appear to have been removed for peace discussions in Jerusalem between Egyptian President Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Begin. It happened this way earlier today in CBS News interviews with the two leaders.
I'm just waiting for the proper invitation.
You must get something directly from Mr. Begin, not through the press.
Right.
And how would that be transmitted, sir, since you do not have diplomatic relations with Israel?
Why not through our mutual friend, the American?
He hinted to me this morning that he thought it might be possible that he would be going to Israel if the invitation was forthcoming within a week or so. Do you think that's realistic?
What I can assure you, Mr. Cronkite, as we really want the visit of President Sadat, we really want to negotiate peace, to establish permanent peace in the Middle East, I will not hesitate to send such a letter.
The letter was sent and accepted. Through the work of American diplomats, the two leaders met in Jerusalem. And then President Sadat and Prime Minister Menachem Begin accepted the invitation of President Jimmy Carter to come to Washington for another meeting. In a century full of impossible things, this seemed most impossible of all. the declaration of a permanent peace between Egypt and Israel.
When we first arrived at Camp David, the first thing upon which we agreed was to ask the people of the world to pray that our negotiations would be successful. Those prayers have been answered far beyond any expectations.
Do you remember the dream of Woodrow Wilson after the First World War? The dream has a flag now, white and blue. And it waves, the flag of the United Nations, in many places on this earth. In 1991, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, an international force of the United Nations drove the invader back.
Just 2 hours ago, Allied air forces began an attack on military targets in Iraq and Kuwait. These attacks continue as I speak. This conflict started August 2nd when the dictator of Iraq invaded a small and helpless neighbor. Kuwait, a member of the Arab League and a member of the United Nations, was crushed. This military action, taken in accord with United Nations resolutions and with the consent of the United States Congress, follows months of constant and virtually endless diplomatic activity on the part of the United Nations.
Let's face it, if he dares come across that border and come down here, I'm completely confident that we're going to kick his butt when he gets here. And it's going to be because of you folks right here.
Once the war on the ground began, it took only 4 days for American and other forces of the UN coalition soundly to defeat the vaunted army of Saddam Hussein. In Kuwait, there was jubilation and gratitude. Wherever in the world you look now, the people of the world look to us. Well, the signs point to us. America's products, America's culture evoke what we are, as much at the end of the century as at the beginning, young, brash, free. Why else would they be playing baseball in Finland? Once in the land of Lenin, Nikita Khrushchev said to the West, "We will bury you." The country for which he spoke, the Soviet Union, no longer exists. Now, Russians can pick up dinner to go at Pizza Hut and then head home to eat and watch a television show, an American television show.
Я Майк Уоллес. Я Морли Сейфер. Я Эд Брэдли. Я Стив Крофт.
Я Лесли Стал. Эти сюжеты, а также Энди Руни в сегодняшней программе.
We have come out on top. How could we not have come out on top with the likes of Harry Truman to lead us? Commonsensical, courageous, honest, plain-speaking, a man without a whit of pretension, but with a lot of wit. When the Second World War was being fought, Truman, then a senator from Missouri and a veteran of the First World War, went right down to see General George Marshall about signing up.
I felt like I owed it to the country. The general pulled his spectacles down on his nose like that, and he said, "Mr. Senator, how old are you?" I said, "I'm 56. He said, "Senator, you're too damned old. You go on back and stay in the Senate." I said, "I'm 4 years younger than you are." He said, "Yes, but I'm already in."
Humor is how we make our point. Ann Richards of Texas did not think laughter was out of place when she argued for a greater role for women in national politics.
But if you give us a chance, we can perform. After all, Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did. She just did it backwards and in high heels.
John Kennedy, a graduate of Harvard, got an honorary degree from Yale in 1962. It would have been un-American to pass up the chance to note the irony of this situation.
It might be said now that I have the best of both worlds, a Harvard education and a Yale degree.
When critics aimed barbs at the most junior member of Franklin Roosevelt's family, FDR caught the barbs deftly and threw them right back.
These Republican leaders have not been content with attacks on me, or on my wife, or on my sons. No, not content with that. They now include my little dog, Fala. Well, of course, I don't resent attacks, and my family don't resent attacks, but Fala does resent it.
You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
Americans are versatile too, of course, but some of us should keep our day jobs.
However, Moscow, Idaho should escape the rain. Finally, I'm expecting the peaceful weather to last along the West Coast, where in Brisbane, California, it should be sunny and comfortably cool.
The Weather Channel's on the phone. Just wanted to tell you that.
That's the national forecast. Now, here is a look at your weather.
Okay, how about this one? I'm so stiff, I went for a checkup, and the doctors declared me legally dead.
No.
Okay, listen to this one. I'm so stiff, I went hiking in the woods, and I almost got chopped down by a logger.
No. You know what? I think they were just sick of this I'm so stiff kind of deal. Now, here's a joke that I liked. I heard it the other day. What are the favorite words of President Clinton? What are his favorite words? What does he love to hear most all the time? Would you like fries with that?
That's the President of the United States you're talking about, Pinhead.
Oh, that's right.
They come more by air now, less by sea. But still they come to put their faith in the future of this place.
One nation.
One nation.
Under God.
Under God.
Indivisible.
Indivisible.
Liberty.
Liberty.
And justice for all.
And justice for all.
We did not set out to conquer the earth, but somehow we have. Not with an army, but with our spirit. And what spirit is that? You couldn't get a better explanation than the one Frank Sinatra gave some kids in a film 50 years ago.
Somebody in for a licking?
You bet. Look at that smear.
Yeah, but 10 against 1. It's not very fair.
Ah, come on. Come on.
What's it all about?
None of your business.
Scared to tell me?
No, I'm not as scared. I'll fight you even.
Not if I can help it. I just want to know why the gang war.
We don't like him. We don't want him in our neighborhood or going to our school. I've been living here as long as you.
What's he got, smallpox or something?
We don't like his religion.
Do you know what this wonderful country is made of? It's made up of 100 different kind of people, and 100 different ways of talking, and 100 different ways of going to church. But they're all American ways. My dad came from Italy, but I'm an American. But should I hate your father because he came from Ireland or France or Russia? Wouldn't I be a first-class fathead? Think about that, fellas. Use your good American heads.
Our vision is not so different now. Not really. But it is wider, taking in other Americans that were invisible once. The African American and the Native American and the Latino and the Asian American. We are as diverse a democracy as there has ever been on this earth. It is a struggle sometimes to be so widely and so richly varied, to contain so many and so much. But we are willing to struggle, and it may well be that our willingness to struggle is what makes us unique. America always has understood that we are an unfinished nation, a great work in progress to which hundreds of millions of hands and voices and hearts contribute. At the beginning of this century, America was a gawky, raw adolescent of a country, with hardly any claim on the attention of the great powers of Europe. Now, in very many ways, we are alone as a power. But we still know ourselves to be unfinished. And we mean to go, always to go, further. I'm Charles Osgood, and this is the century that made America great.
Well, gotta go to work.
What do you work?
I sing.
Ah, you're a kid.
Come here. Now you all stand here, and no hissing allowed. What is America to me? A name, a map, or a flag I see. A certain word, democracy. What is America to me? A house I live in, a plot of earth, a street, a grocer and a butcher, and the people that I meet, the children in the playground, the faces that I see, all races and religions, that's America to me. The town I live in, the street, the house, the room, pavement of the city, or a garden all in bloom, the church, the school, the clubhouse, the million lights I see, but especially the people. That's America. So long, men.
Bye.